Good morning and welcome to the Alabama Works webinar series, a monthly webinar designed to provide information and speakers related to the workforce in Alabama. Past webinars are available on the Alabama Works website at alabamaworks.com. And now your host, Tim McCartney, Chair of the Alabama Workforce Council.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the June 2021 Alabama Workforce Council monthly webinar. I think you're going to have an enjoyable day today. Listening to our speakers, have a great group of speakers today. But first, I want to mention how pleased I am that we were able to meet at the Alabama Workforce Council in person for our second quarter meeting last Wednesday in Montgomery. That meeting was the first of AWC's meetings in person since February of last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So it was very refreshing to witness our return to normalcy, and we hope we can get the rest of the state back soon. Another aspect of our return to normalcy is returning to work. And that's why I want to thank Governor Ivey for her decision to end the federal unemployment supplement programs that were hindering our workforce recovery. These programs came to an end in Alabama this past Saturday, June 19th. This action is expected to have a positive impact on our local economies, which have been struggling to keep up with the increasing consumer demand of literally everything due to the lack of workers. Additionally, thanks to the leadership of Governor Ivey and Alabama's education and workforce stakeholders, we have developed skills-based training programs to help Alabamians re-enter the workforce with in-demand skills and credentials. Alabama's resilient economy has produced an April 2021 unemployment rate of 3.6%, which is just 1.2 percentage points above our all-time low of 2.4% recorded in December of 2019. Now, getting into today's program, we're going to focus on several key initiatives that are driving Alabama's workforce recovery. We're going to begin with a presentation from Mr. Jason Phelps of the Alabama Construction Recruitment Institute and Mr. Alan Alexander from Go Build Alabama. Alan will give us an update on how Alabama's construction industry is providing valuable career pathways for folks across our state. Following Alan and Jason, we'll have Mr. Eric Dorr from the Alabama Supercomputer Agency, who will provide us a preview of the revised Alabama Credential Registry forms that are being updated to accommodate the preferences of business and industry in Alabama. The updated form will launch on July 15th and will help us catalog all of the industry recognized credentials issued by Alabama employers. Following Eric, we have Mr. Lauren Shimonek, a senior policy analyst on the economic opportunity for the National Governors Association, and he's going to provide a national perspective on the National Governors Association's Workforce Innovation Network. Alabama is participating in the Workforce Innovation Network, which is providing support for our skills-based recovery initiative. And I want to apologize to Lauren because I asked him how to pronounce his name and I immediately pronounced it wrong. It's Shimonek, and I said something else. So sorry about that, Lauren. After Lauren, we've got Mr. Mark Colson, good friend of mine. He's president and CEO of the Alabama trucking industry. And Mark's going to give us an update on the opportunities available in Alabama's trucking industry for our citizens. Then we'll following Mark, we'll get a monthly update on the labor market from Mr. Nick Moore of the governor's office. So now I will turn the program over to Mr. Jason Phelps of the ACRI and Alan Alexander of Go Build Alabama to get us up to speed on the great work that they are doing to help build the construction industry in our state. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank all of you for letting us be a part of this panel today and just give you a brief update on Go Build Alabama and the program that we have going there. Just to give you a short, quick, brief background on the program, Alabama Construction Recruitment Institute is the state board and agency that manages that program. And the one thing we know in the construction industry is that workforce issues are always going to be there. They're always going to be persistent. So You know, I have to say that the Alabama construction leadership had a lot of foresight back in 2008 and 2009 to say we need to have something in place that's going to address these problems or help address these problems over time. And that's where ACRI came into concept. And then with a partnership with the legislature, the industry actually placed a fee on themselves to fund the program. So I always like to lead off with that so that everyone knows that we're not taking any money from the education trust fund or anything like that. The industry has really come into this with the skin in their game to say, you know, we need to recruit a new generation, not just recruit a new generation, but inspire a new generation or generations to go to work with the tools of the trade and in the industry. And, you know, having those stakeholders take an active part, partnering with the legislature to get that done has proved to be very successful. You know, as many of you have probably seen over the years with our program, it started off as a high awareness program with Mike Rowe as our on-air spokesperson. So, you know, there was a lot of that high impact marketing techniques. And as Alan's going to show you, we have refined that over the years to a very lead generation focused aspect. But the one thing that we do know is that the program has helped drive folks to the industry. And prior to 2010, when we launched the Go Build Alabama program, just looking at the secondary level construction class enrollments, those were in decline throughout the state. And since 2010, we have seen, if not growth, we've seen stable years every year consistently since then at the high school and the post-secondary level. And right now, with the economy the way it is and the market the way it is, we really look for a great expansion in the construction industry and in construction training across the state. We have also entered into a partnership with another state board, the Alabama Construction Industry Craft Training Board, to help them implement their craft training grant program, which is available to basically anyone that would be on the eligible training provider list, as well as licensed Alabama commercial contractors. So look for more of that information to come. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Alan Alexander, who manages our marketing efforts with the Go Build Alabama program.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Tim, and the rest of the Alabama Workforce Council and AlabamaWorks for having Jason and I on today to talk about workforce development efforts in construction with the Go Build Alabama initiative. A little bit of background about myself. I work at Mark Steen Consulting. It's a creative communications agency based in Birmingham. We have been partnered with the Go Build initiative for almost 2 years now. However, we do have workforce development streams in a few other industries, including corrections, commercial aviation, and trucking. I'm glad to see Mark Colson here on the call. There's a lot of exciting things happening in the trucking industry, and he's doing a great job rallying his industry around meeting the shortage of truck drivers and diesel techs in that industry. But I'm excited to share more about Go Build Alabama, as well as kind of the new approach that our team implemented about 2 years ago when we took on this work. But to kind of pull back a little more to provide some information on terms of how we approach workforce development, what we really do is we focus on constructing a funnel for individuals that are interested in pursuing career training after high school specifically, so that in the end we can create a larger pool of qualified workers, because that's often where it starts, is getting people into training so they can become credentialed and have the skills they need to be hired immediately. The long-term goal there is to make it easier for companies in different industries to be able to hire. It's no longer scraping the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, when it comes to finding talent to fill these high demand positions. So when we think about the funnel, what we've done in marketing, we've kind of constructed a 4-step funnel that is interesting in a few ways, because it has 2 main applications. From a marketing perspective, it allows us to track a candidate up until they are able to be guided into training. But it also, if you blow it back even further, it's applicable from a user's journey from first finding out about a career until they're ultimately hired. So those 4 steps in the funnel are awareness, when an individual first learns about a career or a career pathway, they first become aware of it. Education is usually them taking a step like visiting a landing page or contacting a career center to learn more about what exactly they need to do in terms of applying for training, or what type of sponsorships are out there, what type of apprenticeship opportunities are out there. Conversion is when they either submit information to a career navigator. So in GoBuild's case, they have a staff of outreach coordinators that, and I'll touch on this a little bit later in terms of how they navigate individuals into training. And then retention, to ensure they stay in the funnel and are there are appropriate touch points throughout that journey to make sure that they don't lose interest or drop out of the funnel or discontinue their aspirations to getting trained and to getting employed within the skilled trades. So those kind of 4 steps: awareness, education, conversion, and retention, we found or we're able to segment our marketing, our PR, our lead generation activities to hit each of those funnels to ensure there are adequate touch points for that candidate through that entire user journey. And this funnel construct is also important because it allows our team to pair our strengths with the strengths of ACRI and their staff. And I think specifically what we've been able to do over the past 2 years is developing a new kind of data-driven, research-driven advertising strategy, as well as the implementation of a customer relation platform, which I'll speak to here a little bit more shortly. Ultimately, these 2 main initiatives has allowed our team and ACRI's teams to create a more measurable approach across each of those phases of the funnel. Previously, like Jason mentioned, the Go Build campaign was mostly focused on awareness, and so what I think we've been able to do in Mark's team is equip him and his team with the tools and the resources to be able to measure progress more substantially, which also provides value in terms of being able to pivot, being able to identify insights or go after certain targets that we think would be lucrative and provide more marketing return on investment related to the advertising. So with our approach with Go Build, we really took a research first approach. What that really boiled down to was understanding our audience. So we want to know among Alabama's population, what are our target personas? What are the type of messages that we need to deliver to them that resonate with a motivator or a desired action that we want them to take? So that involves a lot of focus groups, a lot of surveys, a lot of audience landscape research through some proprietary research tools to get an understanding of where our audience is and how they want to receive messages and what those messages need to say in order to encourage action. So that is one element I think we've been able to marry a lot of the science with the art, so to speak. And that was a really big foundational thing. So the personas that we were able to identify for Go Build were the career changer, the student, as well as your influencer and the peer. And for the purposes of our strategy, we really focus on the career changer, who is someone who is unemployed or underemployed in a certain industry, as well as the student. Those two targets have driven the most amount of success in terms of lead generation for Go Build, and are really rich targets in terms of who we want to speak to regarding upskill opportunities across different areas of the state. So what we do when we have those personas, we focus on the messaging. So for instance, for the career changer with Go Build, our messaging is to be more, go build, because one of the motivators we identified in our research phase was that they want to take advantage of opportunities to be able to grow in their careers, find career security and stability with opportunities for upward advancement. So that was kind of an insight we uncovered and how we paired that with messaging and some creative advertisements. Another interesting thing that we've implemented with Go Build that I think has driven a lot of success on the lead generation side is the search engine marketing. What we have found when people are looking for careers, they often turn to Google search as the main platform to look up opportunities. I know in some industries, people have had success with other advertising channels like on social media or on some printed advertisements. But what we have found is that search engine marketing has played a very big role in our ability to generate contacts for ACRI's outreach coordinators and then follow up and then shepherd into these training programs. And as a part of that, we have equipped ACRI's team with an email marketing platform that serves really two functions. It serves as that two-way communication with applicants and candidates that we've generated, but it also serves as an applicant tracking system where the outreach coordinators are able to monitor these candidates, follow up with them accordingly if they've been sent certain training programs or certain courses that are in their area to ensure that they're retained in that funnel. So that is a big part of what we're trying to accomplish. And so that's a multi-platform tool. It's called Active Campaign, the one that we use, and is a very innovative tool in terms of being able to track candidates and provide them with relevant information. And it's all highly measurable, which is a really big focus here at our firm is being able to provide that ROI. So with this strategy, I think the important thing is the focus on the lead generation. So what we do is we deploy digital advertisements that are very highly targeted in certain areas of the state. Those ads are designed to drive traffic to an online form submission on a web page. And that form collects some general information about contacts that are then delivered to ACR's outreach coordinators in Active Campaign. They then have all the information they need once that form is entered to work these candidates to communicate with them, identify what they're interested in, if they're interested in training, if they're interested in apprenticeships, sponsorships, you name it within their area. These outreach coordinators have the information and the means to facilitate follow-up. And so we try to open up that top funnel to really fill the pool and provide the ACRI's outreach coordinators with these high quality contacts that they can then take and guide into training programs. It's also highly measurable with digital advertising, so we're able to enhance the value of the advertising buy and show that return on investment from an advertising perspective. The digital ad landscape is constantly evolving, so being able to measure performance and identify pivots, what's working, what's not, being able to do that on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis is incredibly important. And so I think with this lead generation program, we've been able to do that for GoBuild. A second key component that is extremely important when it comes to workforce development initiatives and overall career exploration is being able to identify career pathways. Now, I spoke with an educator a few weeks ago, and he was talking about if you can provide a career pathway, or in other words, what are the steps an individual needs to take to eventually become hired in a certain field. As young as middle school, they need to be able to understand those steps. And that is a big, big factor because when we consider all the in-demand occupations, starting in middle school, making sure they have that career interest and career awareness is a huge component. So that by the time they reach high school, they already know what type of apprenticeships or what type of dual enrollment programs they want to apply for. And so I think what we've been able to do with GoBuild is really make it easy to understand what that career pathway looks like for the skilled trades, and then combining that with the navigation element. Keeping individuals accountable in their career goals is a big element, and having dedicated career navigators such as GoBuild's outreach coordinators to ensure that they're guided throughout that career exploration process and eventually the placement and the training is a very, very big component. And I think it's something that we've been able to pair well with ACRI's strengths. And then the third thing I think we've seen a lot of success recently with GoBuild is engagement in the virtual world. You know, with the pandemic, we all went online for the better part of a year now, and it's been interesting to figure out how to engage with specifically students in that online environment. And so it really boils down to providing relevant career content to drive interest in a way that's convenient and incorporates user experience. You know, you think about an individual when they hit a website, it needs to have content that they're interested in, but also needs to be easy to navigate so they don't bounce out of the website and they ultimately complete that action, which in the case of GoBuild is submitting a form so that the outreach coordinators can contact them. And so focusing on that kind of career path, we've been able to incorporate into the new GoBuildAlabama.com website. I'll drop a link into the chat here for you all to view. But I think that website does a great job of combining engaging content that's relevant to our certain audiences, and then also outlining that career pathway and identifying the steps that they need to take as they continue their education, or even after they have completed education, where can they find additional training, additional education to kind of meet their workforce development or their career goals, and really support workforce development efforts for Go Build, but across the industry. Again, all kind of focused on building a larger pool of qualified workers to make it easier to hire in the long term. There's a lot of things we're continuing to focus on with Go Build moving forward. A lot of it boils down to refinement, continuing to get research related to how students are considering career pathways when they're in high school, how either unemployed or underemployed young adults who may not feel like they have a path in the career, how can we connect with them? How can we provide them the most relevant, helpful information for them to take that action and encourage them to pursue really great careers in a field that is in high demand. So that's kind of an overview and some updates on some things we've done that are new for Go Build. I'd be happy to answer any questions towards the end of this webinar, or you can also email me. My email is Alan, ALAN, @markstein, MARKSTEIN.co. Yeah, thank you again for having Jason and I on to talk about Go Build. A lot of exciting things still in the works. I think we are beginning to move that needle towards meeting that goal of more highly trained skilled trades professionals in the state.
All right, Alan and Jason, thank you very much for your presentation this morning. As a lifelong member of the construction community in Alabama, I really appreciate everything that y'all are doing to highlight the jobs and in-demand construction career pathways that are available. And I don't know who did it, but whoever thought of getting Mike Rowe in the original Go Build campaign, they did a great job, because Mike does a fabulous job. And I think he made a big impact across our state. So keep up the good work. We appreciate you. We'll now hear from Mr. Eric Dorr from the Alabama Supercomputer Authority. And Eric is going to update us on the revised Alabama Credential Registry form that employers will fill out. So Eric, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Just want to share with you, as the chairman made in his opening remarks, just a preview of our Alabama Credential Registry tool. As we look at our agenda for today, be very brief. We'll explain a little bit about what is Alabama Credential Registry, and then we'll look at 3 areas of the software by way of preview that will give you a little flavor of what that software is going to look like. We'll look at providers, credentials, and then credential components. We'll talk a little bit about a couple frequently asked questions, and then we'll look at and then we'll talk about some Q&A if there is any. So what is Alabama Credential Registry? So Alabama Credential Registry, as this slide states, is an online tool that will provide businesses and educational institutions the opportunity to register new and existing credentials at the state level. These credentials can range from certificates and licenses to degrees and apprenticeships. I think it's important to mention here that long-term, the idea around the Alabama Credential Registry tool is to be a part of a verified resume system where we help employers and qualified candidates be matched. So, an employer is providing credentials, potential employees are going out to attain those credentials, supplying that information as a part of their verified resume. And so easing the match and helping employers find those qualified candidates is the ultimate goal of what is being provided through this tool. So for the first area of the system that we'll look at is providers by way of preview here. Just give you a little flavor of what the software looks like. This is when a new provider is added. I won't read all of this to you, but you can see on here the type of information that is asked for, and how you'll supply that information. And you'll walk through just a couple of options here. This next couple of screens will show you. This is contact information for a provider. You can supply multiple and have one set as the primary. So that gives you a little idea of what's going on with providers here. Again, this is location information. So this is information that and data that you may expect to provide when you're registering a provider. But that gives you a little idea of what that area of the software will look like. Second, we'll look at credentials. So there'll be a landing page here, or dashboard, if you will, that will show you your existing credentials as a provider. You'll have the ability from this page, as you see in the top right-hand corner, to create additional credentials from here. And when you do that, you'll be taken to a screen that looks like this, where you will create. This one is just basic information. And so again, I won't read this to you, but you can see here just the type of information that is being requested for a credential in terms of basic information. You'll fill this information in, and then you'll move on to supply some participant profile here. So this is about a potential participant who would be attaining this credential, and what does that information look like? Again, you can see the options that are here. Can anyone, earn this credential? Or is work experience, important here, and so forth. So you can see that information there in terms of the participant profile that would be earning this specific credential. So then lastly, we'll just touch on credential components here. So there will always be components of a credential. There's two examples that we have here. The first one is an assessment component, which means there's a testing component, if you will, to this particular credential. And so if you had an assessment component, it would look something like this. Where you would supply that assessment information and what's expected as a result of that component of this credential. And then lastly, there may be a work-based component. So, before we talked about a testing component, this is a work-based component. You can see here in this example, this is on the job learning, and then the information that is requested as a part of that work-based component. You can see there. So just to give you, again, a little flavor of what the software will look like, the chairman mentioned, as I get into frequently asked questions here, chairman mentioned in his opening remarks that our target go live date for the software is Thursday, July the 15th. We met a major milestone where the software is in acceptance testing. That was last Tuesday, June the 15th. So for 30 days, we'll go through kind of an acceptance testing period with some very close stakeholders. And then our target go live date again is Thursday, July the 15th. May not be exactly that date, depending on how the acceptance testing goes, but we'll definitely be in that neighborhood and hoping to hit that date. So we're asked often, what is the go live date? So that provides you some information around when we're planning to take this to production and have it generally available. The second question here, how will I create an account and access the tool? You will register for an account on the site, on the Alabama Credential Registry site. Much like many other websites I'm sure that you're accustomed to, we'll have a login screen, and there'll be an option there. If you don't have a login, there'll be an option there that says create an account. Then you'll walk through some very simple steps, create an account so that you have access to the tool. How do you access the tool? So we're going to be pushing users through AlabamaWorks.com to get to the Alabama Credential Registry. So that is the concept behind this. You can go directly to it if somebody were to send you a direct link to the Alabama Credential Registry, but our goal is to push people again through AlabamaWorks.com to get there. Will there be a tutorial for using the tool? Lastly here, yes, we plan to record a live demo session and make that available in terms of a tutorial. I'm certain there will be other training and tutorial opportunities, but that's just one to mention. On the third quarter combined session, the one that happened last week, on the next one, we will plan to record that live demo and make that available. So that rounds out my agenda. I'm happy to answer questions if there are any. I don't know exactly how in this format we do Q&A, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those. If not, and you prefer to email, here's my contact information. Again, my name is Eric Dorr. My email address is edor@asc.edu. And I'm happy to answer questions or pass along questions that you may have in that manner as well. So thank you very much, Chairman, and I will hand it back to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Eric. I really appreciate you giving us an update on the progress and an explanation of how the employers will register those credentials. So I hope I didn't put you behind the 8 ball there by announcing the date, but hey, what's
That's
the
good. That's right.
But anyway, and yeah, we don't really have a good Q&A forum here, but if you will send those questions that you have to Eric, that'd be great. And that'll help us if you see something that they might not have thought of, which they are the supercomputer authority. So I think they thought of everything, but you may have an idea that they haven't thought of. So please share that with us. Thanks again, Eric. Appreciate it. And look forward to working with you. It's now time to turn things over to Mr. Lauren Shimonik of the National Governors Association to give us an update on the Workforce Innovation Network. Lauren, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Chairman McCartney, and good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be a part of the Alabama Workforce Council's monthly webinar and be a part of this panel. As Chairman McCartney said, I am Lauren Shimonik. I'm a senior policy analyst with the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices Workforce Development Economic Policy Program. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the Workforce Innovation Network and Alabama's participation in the project, as well as a national outlook within the context of the project. Real quick, for those who are not familiar with the National Governors Association, NGA is a nonpartisan organization of the nation's governors. Through NGA, governors identify priority issues and deal with matters of public policy and governance at the state, national, and global levels. The NGA Center for Best Practices, the arm of NGA in which I am employed, is the only research and consulting firm that directly serves governors and helps governors and executive branch leaders develop and implement innovative solutions to public policy challenges. The Workforce and Development Economic Policy team focuses on governors' priorities around developing the skilled workforce and economic environment required for individuals, businesses, and communities to thrive and prosper. NGA has been very active in supporting governors through their responses to the pandemic and into economic recovery across many policy areas. The NGA Workforce Innovation Network is one of NGA's central bodies of work with states to support a strong and more equitable recovery. With generous support from Cognizant US Foundation, the Workforce Innovation Network was launched in January to help states achieve a more resilient post-pandemic workforce and economy. Our activities include providing customized technical assistance, facilitated peer learning, and financial support. The network is a first of its kind nonpartisan state policy collaborative designed to help states build capacity to undertake innovative policy solutions that sustainably and equitably improve employment and workforce outcomes. The network is dedicating to helping states explore 4 key areas essential for a strong and equitable economic recovery. 1, expand access to essential support services. 2, rapidly connect job seekers to work. 3, advance digital access and skill development. And 4, enhance job quality for all. I think it's important to mention that these topics do not exist in silos. So rather than inviting states to engage with us on only one of these topics, often you see these themes emerge throughout all of the work that states are doing right now. This first round, however, is focused on providing technical assistance to rapidly connect job seekers to support services, work, or training via people-centered, or as it's called human-centered design, coordinated service delivery models. States were asked to develop a cross-agency interdisciplinary team and develop an action plan that addresses a vision, strategies, associated activities, and outcomes. Alabama's skill-based recovery initiative fits a model of complementary priorities and was chosen to be one of 10 states in this first cohort. Other states in this cohort include Arizona, Colorado, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Missouri, Nevada, New Mexico, and Washington. These states and their project action plans represent what is happening around the country to address workforce development challenges, needs, and opportunities. The vision for the Alabama Skills-Based Recovery Initiative seeks to provide integrated education, workforce, and human services for Alabamans who have been displaced by COVID-19, which will allow them to retrain and re-enter the workforce in an occupation leading to a family-sustaining wage, and is structured around 5 strategies: a statewide gap analysis and review of Alabama's eligible training providers, a talent development capstone, digital career pathways navigators, technical assistance to align for integrating non-credit and short-term programs into credit-bearing certificate and degree programs, and finally, a segmented marketing campaign to engage underemployed and the unemployed. I have the honor of being the NGA liaison to Alabama and getting to work with Chairman McCartney and Nick Moore and the rest of the team, and I'm pleased to share that Alabama has progressed successfully through this grant opportunity. In fact, the state has one of the most robust and comprehensive action plans in the cohort. And we at NGA are excited that the state will soon start research on creating the statewide non-degree credential credit articulation index and then providing technical assistance to eligible training providers on integration of the index. We're also very excited about the prospect of developing and implementing virtual career coaching, something many states are looking to develop, albeit not with the same comprehensive strategy that underlies and supports Alabama's efforts. So while we are excited and enthused for all the work that Alabama is doing, we also want to support continuous improvement. So while much progress has been made through the Workforce Innovation Network, there are still opportunities for continuous improvement for the state to meet credential attainment and labor force participation goals. We at the NGA Center see Alabama as an exemplar state on the topics of credentialing, career navigation, and data system innovation. And we often refer states to best practices literature that references Governor Ivey's strategic vision and the education and workforce alignment work taking place in Alabama. And like Mr. Dorr, I'm happy to answer questions. I can also share a link to the Workforce Innovation Network website and NGA overall. And thank you again for this opportunity to share what is going on with NGA and how we partner and look to support the work going on in the state of Alabama.
Thank you so much, Lauren. You and the NGA are providing a valuable service to Alabama as we implement our skills-based recovery initiative. So we appreciate you helping us understand what other states are doing to propel their economic and workforce recoveries. And remind everyone, please reach out to Lauren through his web address and ask him questions, or you can contact Nick Moore or myself. So thanks again, Lauren. Appreciate you. Now my friend Mark Colson, who's president and CEO of the Alabama Trucking Association, will brief us on the state of Alabama's trucking industry and the opportunities that await Alabamians in this dynamic and booming industry.
Thank you, Tim, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit with all of you today. And I just want to first thank you for leading the Workforce Council. The work that's being done here is critically important for all the industries in our state, all the businesses in our state. And without it, I don't know if we'd be doing as well as we are. And so I commend you for the work, and Nick and the governor's team do a fantastic job as well. So it takes a teamwork to make progress, and we're proud to be part of the team as well. I don't know that the trucking industry in the past has stepped up to the plate, been at the table as much as we need to, because we are a critically important business in our state. Most people aren't aware that the trucking industry in Alabama employs about 110,000 working Alabamians. That's about 1 in 15 jobs in our state. It's home to about 12,000 trucking companies. So I like to say, and just to put it in terms people can understand, in America, there's 50 states. Obviously, there's trucking interest in every state. We're a top 10 trucking state in America. We like to be top 10 in football. We like to be number 1 in football, but we're top 10 in trucking, and so we're really, I think, a little bit behind the curve when it comes to what we need to be doing on workforce development. One of the bright spots of the pandemic was that it did shine a light on a lot of different industries and what we do every day. And for the trucking industry, that was definitely the case. And so, we have what I say this a lot. Those of you who participated in the Workforce Council meeting last week heard me say it, but one of the most challenging things in this life to do is change someone's perception. So for in the trucking industry, like many industries, we at times have a perception problem. For those that work in our business, whether you're a truck driver or a logistics manager or a safety director, you know how great the opportunities are to work in the trucking industry in Alabama. If you have a family member that does, you know about it. But many times if we're trying to attract people to come work in our business that have a particular perception of what it means to be a trucker, I look at people and say, I'm a trucker and I'm proud of it. I don't drive the truck, but I'm a trucker. And we have folks all throughout our network in Alabama that resemble that. And so we do have a perception issue at times, but the pandemic has been a positive, had a positive influence on being able to promote what the trucking industry does just every day. In Alabama, that's deliver about 86% of all goods to every community in our state. So people like to say, if you got it, it came on a truck. I like to say, if you got it, it came from a trucker, because one of the most important things we can do to change that perception in our state is to personify our industry. Others try to objectify our industry. We have to tell the amazing stories that exist, just like in the construction industry, no different. But we do, just to put those of you who've been in the workforce development space for a long time, hey, I'm new. I'm a lot of you that are on this call have educated me on some things that I was very ignorant on just over the past number of weeks. And so I appreciate that. I think to put it in context, I mean, we take the construction industry and other industries that have coordinated efforts to drive their workforce pipeline. I'll just ask you all this question, and I don't mind showing you this. It's an embarrassing statistic, I would say, but our industry is now going to do something about it. And you know how much money the trucking industry to feed 1 in 15 jobs in our state spends on a coordinated effort to feed our workforce pipeline? The answer to that question is $0. Now, there are local regionalized efforts. There are individual companies that do some innovative things, but I'm talking about large scale, coordinated, strategic effort to feed the workforce pipeline for one of our essential industries in Alabama. We've dropped the ball a little bit. We have great companies, but we're fixing that. Mark Steen's a great partner with us, like they are with other industries. And we are going to, over the coming months, based on some good research that we've done, partner with many of you on this call and the work that you're already doing, and feed the workforce pipeline for CDL drivers and diesel technicians. Those are not the only two needs of our industry, but they're the two most urgent and the two greatest. I'll tell you right now, one of the problems we've had some conversations about, even at the federal level, through FMCSA, even FEMA, is the shortage of truck drivers, of course, but the shortage of truck drivers in the fuel industry. That has now risen to a level of national interest, national security concerns, and those are more labor-intensive jobs dealing with pipes. And we have enough fuel, but delivering that fuel is essential as well. And so the Colonial Pipeline issue really didn't affect that, but it did, just like the pandemic. It highlighted this systemic problem that we have in trucking, which is a qualified worker shortage, which a lot of industries have, of course. So there are fantastic opportunities in the trucking industry. You know, I said this to a group, this was funny. I was with a group of commercial bankers not long ago, and they lend to our industry. We were giving an update on the trucking industry. And I looked at the 5 people in the room and I asked them, how many of y'all have kids? And all of them raised their hands. And I said, how many of you would encourage your kid to be a trucker? And none of them raised their hand. And I said, well, what if your child could grow up to be the CEO of a trucking company, or the general counsel of a trucking company, or a truck driver, and because they are incentivized by adventure, or want to see the world, or really want to work with some really cool technology. I mean, truck drivers now are highly skilled professionals and have to operate very expensive equipment and very sophisticated technologies, as well as diesel technicians. And as I said, what if you could get some training, really less than 2 years, 19 years old, make $60,000 to $70,000 a year as a diesel technician with 0 college debt? How many of you were making $60,000 to $70,000 a year at the age 19 with no college debt? And so those are the kind of conversations we have to have. We have to take a lot of the strategic tools that Alan mentioned for the Go Build effort and employ those. But really all we have to do in trucking, I believe, is build good partnerships with people like all of you on this call to understand what exists and what opportunities are there. And then just tell our story in an effective way, because when people learn about for those who work in the trucking industry, it's addicting. The culture is addicting, the people, the quality of relationships that folks have. And so whether you're in sales or you're the truck driver or you work in it, it's not perfect. We have a lot of improvements that we have to, we have to undergo on our end. But the most important thing I think we need to do right now are build those tools and tell our story. And I think, we can make a difference, but it's going to take, us working with the Alabama Workforce Council and a lot of others to get that done. So Tim, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're trying to do there today. And I really do appreciate all the work that everyone on this call does every day.
Thank you, Mark. We really appreciate you being with us today and look forward to partnering with the Trucking Association in the future. The trucking industry is really a strong force to the recovery, and not only Alabama, but our nation as well. And like you said, if you have it, a trucker delivered it to you in some fashion. So I appreciate you joining us today and all you're doing to support and promote your industry. The industry is essential to the survival of our economy. We look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thank you.
Our final presenter today is our normal speaker, the GOAT himself, Mr. Nick Moore, and he's going to give us an update on the state of Alabama's labor market. Take it away, Nick.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will keep this very brief today, but I did want to mention a little bit about our May 2021 unemployment rate. It's important because this is the lowest rate of initial unemployment claims and monthly unemployment rate that we've had since the pandemic began, and we're getting pretty close, just 1.2% away from our all-time low unemployment rate. Well, actually, no, just 1% away. So 1% away from our all-time low of 2.4% unemployment back in December of 2019. And so what we've got now is about 75,000 people that are currently unemployed, but we've got 89,000 open online job ads. So for the second consecutive month, we now have more open online job ads and we have unemployed persons, and that is a good thing. But also somewhat of a challenge because we've got to increase labor force participation to get some folks that currently are not looking back into the pipeline. And we do think that will happen as a result of some of the things that were shared today. So this is definitely the lowest unemployment count in 2021. And as you can see, and taking a look at our regions, Region 1 up there is at 2.2%, which is actually lower than the all-time state rate of unemployment. So they're really, really low and have got a lot of new industries coming online. Of course, Mazda, Toyota, and other large firms coming online. So particularly acute unemployment level in the northern part of the state, and looking around the state, not much further behind in a lot of other areas as well. I want to spend most of my time today talking about our 2021 survey of employer talent needs. And so this survey was conducted by Signal, started at the end of April and then went through the beginning of May. So it was only out a couple weeks. Pretty small sample size, but we did get 310 Alabama employers. And this was delivered through trade associations around the state. So no secret that, as the chairman outlined and a lot of our other speakers, that 73% of employers plan to add jobs in the next 6 months. 84% are saying they're having trouble finding candidates. So finding the right candidate is also difficult. There's various number of reasons. Most common reasons were lack of required skills, education, not having applicants, I think, was one of the key things that stuck out to me, is just that there was no one applying generally. And then 39% said that they required degrees for jobs where 25% of the current workforce does not have one. So that shows that the skills gap and degree inflation is also an issue. 68.4% said that they would prefer a candidate with relevant skills but no college degree, and only 12.6% of respondents said they would definitely choose a candidate with a degree over experience, which is kind of paradoxical looking at our last slide there, to where we were saying that there was a lot of firms that took into account a degree where a lot of the incumbent workforce didn't have one. So some of this this paradox here is something that we're keenly looking to unravel and unpack as part of our work with Lauren and the Workforce Innovation Network, and seeing how we can get more awareness around skills-based hiring as an alternative to degrees and other things that are just virtue signals of confidence. And certainly nothing that we're doing that's mutually exclusive or in competition with degrees. We just want employers and individuals to have the right information about what does what and what it does not do as well. So looking at another angle on skills-based hiring, 79% of employers say that they're using skills-based hiring always or most of the time. And around 30% of respondents expected new hires rather, to possess all the skills before they're hired. And about 35% said they want employees to be trained on the job. So a good mixture of those that are okay to just hire someone, direct hire, and then those that will do some on-the-job training. 76% of employers are saying that they regularly inform their employees about upskilling opportunities, and about 52% of employers say they issue credentials to employees. About 51.6% of the respondents say that they do not usually post jobs to our job portal, and about 57% are not using the career centers. And so they're using either internal hiring or HR or online jobs ads or other things that are not going through our career center. And then about 60% have a direct relationship with high schools and colleges, and about 68% are at least somewhat confident that the education and training providers are properly preparing potential employees for open positions in their areas. And about 69% stated that CTE programs in their areas are somewhat aligned to the needs of their company. So this shows that we do have some room for improvement in regard to getting more people aware of the opportunities that are available through working with our public workforce system and by forming direct relationships with our education and training providers. But on the main, this is actually very good compared to what I've heard from other states and just anecdotally about some of the degree of relationships between business and industry and training providers, but we're always looking to get that number up to 100. And then for our Ready to Work program, 58% are very familiar, somewhat familiar with Ready to Work. And a really big number, 86.8% of employers believe that Ready to Work could be or is valuable to their workforce. So some really illuminating data, I thought, at least, and hopefully that will, this survey, and along with some of the other surveys we've been doing with Signal, will give us a better understanding of how we can make some adjustments to serve our employers and citizens better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. That's very good information to know. We've got a few minutes left, and I want to put you, I'm not going to put you on the spot because I know you know all this stuff, but I know there's some people on here listening today that may not know this or may get confused on this, because I used to get confused about it all the time. But can you explain briefly the difference between the labor force participation rate and the unemployment rate?
Yes, sir. I think it's a very important difference, and you're right that sometimes this is kind of nuanced and sometimes can get conflated, or sometimes we just talk only about the unemployment rate and not so much about labor force, or vice versa. So the unemployment rate is the number of people who are actively either looking for a job or and they do not have a job, but they're actively looking for a job. And so these are people that have either signed up for unemployment, or they have gone to the Career Center and said, I'm unemployed, I'm looking for a job. And so that number does not take into account people that are on the sidelines, or what we would consider not in the labor force. And so you're not in the labor force if you're not employed or seeking employment. And so you would not be counted in the unemployment rate. And the age group there is 16 to 64. And then there's another measure of that called the prime age labor force participation rate that's looking at 25 to 54. But the general labor force participation rate is 16 to 64. And that's looking at everybody, again, that's employed or looking for work. So you're not in the labor force if you're not employed and you're not looking for work. And Alabama, and it kind of vacillates from month to month, but it's generally around about a 58% labor force participation rate. And that means that we've got about 42% of people 16 to 64 that are not in the labor force. And so that leads you to ask why. And when was the high watermark of labor force participation in Alabama? Well, that was around 1997 when Alabama reached its high watermark of labor force participation. Then we've seen a lot of structural changes in the labor market where some of our textile industries closed down. Then we got a lot more automotive manufacturing, a lot more highly skilled jobs. And so what we want to do to increase our labor force is to help people overcome the benefit cliffs they're facing, to where their short-term interests are not always necessarily aligned with their long-term interests. And what I mean by that is if somebody fears that they're going to lose more money in real dollars than they gain through paid employment in the short term, then we got to figure out how to hold them harmless. And so that's what we're trying to do with focusing and braiding our public workforce dollars like a laser on that transition period. So that way we can get more people that are currently on the sidelines into the labor force, because honestly, we are not going to hit our attainment goal if we don't do that. If we just focus on getting the unemployment rate down, if we just focus on people that are in our traditional high school to post-secondary pipeline, and if we just focus on reskilling people who were displaced by COVID, we're only going to get ourselves back to where we started, which is a position that we knew was still behind the 8 ball as far as getting to our attainment goal. So we've got to get our labor force participation rate up at least to the national average, knowing that's a moving target, because every month the national labor force average changes just like the state. But we do have somewhat anemic labor force participation rate, just like the rest of the Southeast does, compared to the nation, and we can certainly do things about that. And that's one thing I'm very proud about your leadership and Governor Ivey's commitment to helping people overcome those benefits cliffs.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I think it's good for us all to remember where those numbers are. We can sometimes get caught up in the minutia of the economics and people's eyes glaze over. But thank you. I knew you'd have that answer right at the tip of your tongue. So thanks a lot, Nick. That brings us to a close of today's webinar. And I want to thank each of our guests for their presentation today. Appreciate each one of y'all taking time out of your day. I also want to thank each of you that are watching for spending your time with us this morning. And then finally, I want to encourage all of you that have not yet been vaccinated just to go get it done. We need the protection across the country and our state that will aid in the prevention of a reoccurrence of COVID virus. I know I'm not the only one that doesn't want to get shut down and have to stay in the house for another year. This country has rid itself of smallpox, polio, mumps, measles, tuberculosis, and many other devastating diseases, and we did it by taking vaccines. And I hear all the political arguments and personal arguments, but the bottom line is we got to protect ourselves. So go get your vaccine and encourage others to do so. So I hope you'll join us next month on July 19th at 9 a.m. for our next webinar. We'll send out a agenda for that sometime before the event. So until then, please call on us anytime if we can assist you in your business and workforce needs. Have a good rest